Filipinos absolutely love jelly spaghetti. If you don't serve this at your kid's birthday party, you're in big trouble. Magandang hapon mga kabano. Ako po si Chris Urbano, and today I'm talking about my top 5 Filipino pasta dishes. So things that use European style pasta as opposed to noodles, and they have kind of made those using Filipino ingredients. So this is kind of a relatively new, if you like, fusion food genre. Well, Filipinos are the masters of adaptation when it comes to their culinary arts and of borrowing things from different cultures and countries and combining them into something that is new but authentically Filipino. And I love making pasta. In Australia, where I'm originally from, would you believe I'm not a Filipino? I used to always make pastas, and when I came to the Philippines I just saw so many yummy things that could be converted into pastas, and Filipinos were already doing this. Now, as always, I've got my very objective criteria today for what is my top 5 list, and the first one is kahalagaan ng pagluluto, or the culinary value of the dish. Second is the Filipino authenticity, or gaano ka Filipino ang itong ulam, and third is gaano kasarap, or how great does it taste when you actually eat it. So number 5 on my list, I'm going to start with one that you all will be familiar with and will know very well. It's jolly spaghetti. So jolly spaghetti has become a bit of a shorthand for a dish that uses processed meat, like some sliced hot dogs, maybe just a little bit of vegetables like onion and so forth, and then it will use a fairly sweet tomato sauce. Sometimes you can fortify it with some condensed cream or evap milk to make it a bit more creamy in its texture. So it actually is nothing like a typical Italian bolognese. It's not fresh tomatoes and fresh herbs and ground beef. I think everything comes from a pack from the store, which is not necessarily a good thing, but this is an iconic Filipino dish. It's widely available and very popular when you need to feed the whole barangay and you need to feed them fast. I always try them, like, first bite, very satisfying. Second bite, slightly less satisfying. Third bite, I'm like, this is too sweet for me. So it's not my personal favorite, but I'm here to represent all Filipinos' taste buds on this show, and Filipinos absolutely love jelly spaghetti. If you don't serve this at your kid's birthday party, you're in big trouble. All right, let's move on to the next one. So number 4 on my list of Filipino pastas that you should try to make is balut puttanesca. So balut, of course, is a duck embryo. Sounds delicious, is delicious. You get this egg here in the Philippines and you have the baby duck embryo inside of that. And then puttanesca, of course, is one of the famous Filipino red sauce pastas. This was known as the horse pasta in Italian cooking, and it will typically have tomato, it's a red sauce based pasta, garlic onion, and then will usually be flavored with either a bit of bacon or pancetta, or it can be done with, say, anchovies, capers, and olives. So those are some of the flavors there: sweet, salty, garlicky, and it's a great combination when you consider, we say, duck embryo, which is a very rich flavored poultry, to try it out. And if you're not comfortable with the idea of just cracking open your duck egg and gorging on the insides of that egg, this might be a more approachable way for a Western palate to engage and try out a balut inspired dish. Number 3 on my list of Pinoy pastas that you should try to make at home is a Columbian Longanisa and tausi, or black bean, rigatoni. This, I suppose, is my personal take on a broader concept, which is using longanisa in pasta. And if you think about longanisa as a Filipino adaptation of Spanish chorizo, you can sort of see how that would fit, because chorizo pastas, we all know, are delicious, right? I'm sure a lot of us have tried putting that classic Spanish sausage through a pasta, a cold pasta salad, or a warm pasta sauce, red sauce combination. It works really well. So here in the Philippines, it makes sense that longanisa would be a great meat or sausage to put into a pasta. And my favorite one to use is from the town of Calumpit in Bulacan, because when you consider longanisa, all regions of the Philippines have their own take on longanisa. Typically, pork is the one common thread, but then each area will have a different flavor profile depending on their locally available ingredients and their own unique regional culinary arts. So what I like to do is use the Calumpit longanisa, and then we add to that the black beans, which provide salt. Obviously, the longanisa is bringing out savoriness and that really powerful garlicky effect, and then just the addition addition of a few bell peppers, fresh tomatoes, and I always use broadleaf Cuban oregano, and you just slice that thinly and you throw that in, which is a beautiful combination when it's paired with black beans. Top it with some cheese, and I use rigatoni because the Columbian Longanisa, when you chop it up and toss it back through the pasta, that and the rigatoni is the perfect pasta to use because all of the bits will get caught up inside the rigatoni. Super delicious, one of my favorites, and that's why it's number 3 on my list. So number 2 on my favorite Filipino pastas that you should try to make at home, it's the Kenapa pasta. You see what I did there, right? It was very clever. We took the word tinapa, we took the word pasta, we banged them together, and we have the tinapa pasta. Now, tinapa is Filipino dried fish. So you take a piece of fish, typically like galunggong or a bangus. You're gonna soak that fish for a couple of hours in a brine, and then you go and dry it. That is a very intense, rich, flavored seafood at that point, and you sort of then can break that up and use that as a flavoring agent for a pasta in much the same way that something like anchovies can be used as a base for a pasta sauce. What I like about it and why it's so high up on my list is that tinapa is quintessentially Filipino food that's normally eaten sort of as an accompaniment to tomato and eggs at breakfast time. So this is a real reimagination of something that is inexpensive, widely available thing in the Philippines. But if you put this into a pasta and you plate that up nicely, I mean, you could sell that for $30 a plate in the US. I probably just gave a bunch of Filipinos in the US an idea because it looks fantastic. It's a really interesting flavor. Perfect with wine. I would normally do this with a glass of Sangiovese when I have it, which just picks up off the tomato, and nothing wrong with pairing tinapa or a strong fishy flavor with a nice medium-bodied, good acid red wine. So that's what you want to do with this one if you're trying it at home, and that's why it's number 2 on my list today. Number 1 on my list of Philippine pastas that you should make at home, it's laing linguini. This is starting to gain some popularity, and it's hard to say exactly where this was first developed or who came up with the notion of doing a laing-based pasta, but I first experienced in Darwin. I was hosting a MasterChef competition in Australia's Northern Territory for aspiring Filipino chefs, and one of them, a guy called Edward Ocampo, he just was nailing the Filipino cooking, like real master of Oz-Phil fusion. And we just got talking, and he told me about his laing linguini, which apparently was a dish born of necessity, that he was really craving laing, but he had no rice. So he basically made it into a pasta because that's all he had available in his Melbourne pantry that night. And the stores were closed because Australian retail closed at like 5 p.m. So what's really cool here is when you consider laing and how it's being used as a pasta, it's effectively pesto. And when you think about a pesto, which is normally basil leaves and olive oil, some Parmesan cheese, some ground nuts, if you were to adapt that to the Philippines, what we're doing is we're taking laing, which is made of taro leaves. And the taro leaves are a little bit more bitter. And then we're mixing those with cashew nuts. And then coconut milk is where we're deriving our oil from. So you've got your coconut milk in there, and as it separates into the solids and the oil, it's a little creamier than a pesto, but you kind of have that oil character in there as well. You can start to see that it's actually quite a similar combination, but using all Southeast Asian ingredients, which I think is a really clever adaptation. We'd normally break a little bit of queso puti up over it, maybe add a hint of chili flakes when it comes to a laing linguini, and typically pesto is often a vegetarian option, or I like to do mine with mushroom or chicken. In the Philippines, we'd probably do this linguini with seafood, particularly shrimp. You have to try this sometime. I mean, it's remarkable how good it is. And when I first made it myself, I think I was just like, wow, this is just like eating pesto, but it's almost as slightly more extremes on the bitterness and salty savoriness. So it's a bit more of an intense experience, but the balance of everything really does actually come together somewhere in the middle. And then you pair that to a glass of wine and you're in flavor town. Sauvignon Blanc or a dry citrusy Riesling would be the wine to have with your laing linguini. So that is number 1 on my list for being super interesting, a really cool adaptation, all Filipino in terms of the ingredients that goes in, and really delicious. Okay, mga kabano, so what is your favorite way to make pasta using all Filipino ingredients? I'd love to hear your suggestions, thoughts, comments. A lot of these we've actually done recipes for on this show. And of course, remember you can share this video or tell your friends or neighbors about this show and help me take Filipino food global. And my cookbook will be coming out later this year. So please drop me a line here at my email address and just literally say, hey, I love Filipino food and cooking and what you're doing, and I will let you know when and where and how you can get a copy of my first book that is coming out soon. Thanks for the support, everybody. Look forward to hearing you. I'll see you next time. I'm Chris Urbano. Bye.